A few. A few. Let's get into it. A few good movies. A few. A good. A few. Good. A few. Let's get into it. A few good movies.
Did you buy a stand for your mic, or is that
No, I am so cheap. I took a tripod I already had and a clamp.
Wow.
And I'm just clamping the mic stand that I do have to the tripod. It's very, very precarious. Honestly, it's free.
It's free.
It's free. It's cool with me. Hello, and welcome to the premiere episode of our new podcast, A Few Good Movies. I'm Zach Dame, and with me is Chris Porto.
Feeling good. Happy to be here.
Excellent. And Sam Resmail.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Welcome. So, hey guys, how are you doing?
Doing well.
Pretty good.
So, I think we should just start out by talking a little bit about the concept of this new podcast we're starting here and what we hope to achieve from it.
Yeah, I think we have an interesting idea for a podcast. We love talking about movies, and we love talking about particular movies. So we thought, why don't we pick a topic every time we do an episode, and then pick movies that fit that topic in some way, shape, or form.
And I think that'll make for interesting conversations about genre and about how the movies relate to one another.
And just movie, like why people go to movies in general. Not everybody wants to go to a movie to learn something or to just be entertained. They're looking for a specific itch, and sometimes Fast and Furious just hits that itch.
We're all film lovers, obviously. We could talk about sort of our backgrounds and why we love movies, but I like the idea that this could maybe expand our horizons a little bit too.
Absolutely.
See things we wouldn't watch otherwise and explore genres we probably wouldn't go out of our way to go see anyway.
Right.
You know, watching three similar movies back to back, or three movies that share a similar theme, it changes your perception of what you're watching. In the context of three movies together, it's going to change your view of all three, or maybe even of the genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, we pick movies that kind of showcase who we are.
I think we'll learn a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
During this movie, for better or worse.
This is a podcast about movies, but it's also about finding ourselves.
Yeah, come on this journey with us, won't you? Well, considering that no one knows who we are, we could talk a little bit about ourselves and what's brought us to a point of wanting to talk about movies on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think I'm newer. I guess this is a newly formed group, but I'm newer in the sense that, so me and Zach have worked on Mr. Robot and Homecoming in post-production. He was an assistant editor and I was post-coordinator. Mm-hmm. And, we became friends and we love talking about movies even while we're working in the lunchroom. And literally everyone in those offices loved to talk about movies. So it wasn't like a stretch to just be like, hey, I watched Terminator 2. And everyone would be like, oh, let's talk about it for 3 hours.
Indeed.
So, yeah. So, we've picked the movie industry as part of our careers, and this is another way to work in that.
Well, and what was your childhood like with movies?
So I was raised by TV and movies, and a lot of stuff that I still hold to believe is to be true. It came from movies and TV, and just stuff that I would watch and be like, oh, that's how the world works.
Mm-hmm.
Like All the President's Men. Oh, there is corruption in the government. I get it. Stuff like that. I sort of had license to see whatever. So I saw Jurassic Park when I was way too young, and I saw Pulp Fiction, and I guess I saw it in high school, so it's not that young, but it was definitely before I was 17 to see it in a theater.
That's like any high schooler's favorite movie. That's just perfect for high school age people.
For the wrong reasons, I will say. There is some. Being raised by TV and movies isn't glamorous by any stretch of the imagination. I think I smoked my first cigarette because Jules looked so fucking cool smoking a cigarette in Pulp Fiction.
Wow.
It's not.
Honestly, the fact that you could recognize that.
We probably have a similar story to that.
Yeah.
we smoked cigarettes in high school for some reason. It had to be related to some shitty movie we watched.
That was must have been something that I missed, Mams. I don't remember ever doing that with you.
Well, I take it back then.
You did. You didn't do it with me. So, speaking of all of that, Chris and I go way back to first grade.
Just about 30 years.
Just about 30 years. And Chris, I think, was into movies even before I was, really.
Mhm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you developed that a lot earlier, at least in a serious context, much earlier than me. I think I enjoyed watching movies, and I probably spent many summers just watching whatever was on TV, but I didn't hone in on it as kind of a more serious fan of movies until late middle school, early high school. And then it was like off to the races, man. Just like so many movies, just multiplex every weekend.
Yep.
And in between the movie at the multiplex, a movie before and after at Chris's house. It was so many movies.
This is when video stores were a thing, and we would rent
Yeah.
movies all the time.
For those youngsters out there that don't remember
Yeah.
video stores and when DVDs became available. And
Yeah.
so that was sort of my education, was like early high school and then on forward through high school, through college. I wanted to pursue it as a career, and I was lucky enough to get into, film school in California, which brought me out here. And, I'm very lucky that I was able to sort of carve out a career in post-production for myself. And I'm now an editor, and that's where I met Samara along the way, working on Mr. Robot, which of course is an amazing show and was an amazing experience.
Yeah.
I will always cherish my time working on those shows because they're just so amazing. It was a case where I watched season 1 and 2 as a fan from my living room, and then season 3, I was suddenly working on it, which is insane. But, I've had the chance as a post PA and an assistant editor over the years to work on just this wide variety of movies and TV, everything from like the lowest level, like reality show, up to like the highest budget movie and everything in between. What's cool about post is that it is like the one department that you can be a PA and see the whole process from beginning to end. Like you get to look at dailies every day and go to set, see the directors working with the editors. And it's just been like such a great education over the last decade plus to see the inner workings of filmmaking. So that's kind of my background. And so I guess, Chris, you're next, but so you can start off kind of where I left off in our love of films as kids.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the film industry. I don't live in LA. I live in Minnesota, unfortunately. And
It's nice, man. I like Minnesota.
I've loved films my whole life. My earliest memories, I think, are of watching movies at home. It's always been kind of a bonding experience. I would bond with my parents and watch movies. And then later on, it was bonding with friends and watching movies, doing sleepovers and watching movies. When we hit high school, we can drive ourselves to the movies. There's even a part when I was a senior in high school where I was ditching school to go to the movies.
Oh.
And I did go to film school, but I quit after like a year and a half. I should have moved to LA when Zach did, because I'd probably be there with you guys right now. But my love for film is maintained. It's even gotten greater over the years. And the best friends I have, we've become friends because of movies.
Mm-hmm.
All the people that I've met over the years when I used to work at Best Buy. That's the thing that draws me to doing a podcast like this, where we can sort of bond over our love of film. Picking the genres like we are is something that I've done for years. Like I would go and binge a certain genre.
Yeah, you used to go through phases.
Yeah, and I think I got that from like my love of Tarantino movies. Kill Bill came out, and I was into Asian films at that point, but all the films that movie references, maybe I hadn't seen all of them. So of course I had to track everything down. And that's another thing for me is like the art of tracking these movies down, which
that I think
nowadays
is...
everything's at our fingertips.
Right.
When I was younger, it would be like a laser disc because my parents had a laser disc machine, and we would have to go to a laser disc store, which there was one in Chicago, and try to find movies. I remember for ages wanting to see Evil Dead 2 because I had seen Army of Darkness, but I never saw Evil Dead 1 or 2. They weren't available on Laserdisc, and the home videos were very hard to find at the time. To me, that was a big part of it, was the collecting aspect of it. And just
I've never seen a bigger collection than Chris had when we were in high school of DVDs.
And I have grown up and embraced the digital age, but I still buy a lot of movies.
I kind of miss the DVD era because there was something really, great about just sifting through like your collection, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, your collection was so big that friends and students from our high school would come over and borrow things like a video rental store. They would just sort of peruse your shelves. I mean, how many do you have a number?
I mean, it's thousands.
And just the other day, you showed me something that you another hard find that you just found.
Yeah, I got the only Blu-ray available of True Lies. It's from Spain.
Oh,
The
interesting.
James Cameron film.
I love that movie.
The funny thing about that Blu-ray though is apparently Spain has very different copyright laws, so that's sort of an unofficial official release of the movie.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to come out.
Like, it's not authorized, but it's a legitimate Blu-ray release. It's not like some shitty bootleg.
Isn't that weird how
I wonder why
some
that is.
some movies are just impossible to find? They
Well,
just don't.
That is a big movie.
James Cameron's The Abyss. You can't find it. It's like a milestone in special effects. You can't buy it.
I wonder if Cameron has like the rights to them and is not letting up.
Well, now Disney owns them because they were Fox, I believe. Yeah, supposedly he hasn't approved something like the transfers or whatever, and he's making like 4 Avatar movies right now.
It's still insane to me that it's been going on for as long as it has.
Crazy.
But-
He could be making True Lies too.
Going back to what Chris was saying about collecting, and just to kind of show how we're all kind of, we're all friends and we share love for movies, but the three of us look at movies differently in some degree because I don't have a collection and nor do I really want one because I do think it is just so cumbersome to
don't
have
do it.
so many and like,
Mhm.
yeah.
If you have to move, it sucks.
Right, exactly. The moving of it, and it's cumbersome, and it's like I like the ability to not reach back into my old movies and force myself to find something new to watch.
I don't know if collecting movies is as much about having them at your disposal to watch as much as they are scratching that like collector itch.
That's true. I really don't have a collector's. I have a Marie Kondo like.
Marie Kondo.
Yeah, I want to get rid
Itch.
of everything in my house.
Chris, I mean, since you're the collector, you could speak to that the most. Like, is
Yeah.
it more about just like collecting, or is it about having movies at your disposal?
I think it was a bit of both. There are like limited editions where I would have to have that. Now, if there's a movie digitally that I want to see or want to own, I'm going to buy it digitally. Like, I don't care about having the disc. If it's something I really love, maybe I'll buy the disc and then you just get the digital copy anyway. Yeah, I don't have that I want the thing itch anymore.
You've lost it over the years.
Yeah, and for me, that's moving a couple times. And then also, things are so easy to obtain now.
Yeah.
The only way I buy things now is if I can't find it anywhere else, and I'll still import stuff when it's not available here. To me, I don't care about the packaging. I don't care about the extra features. The movie's the most important part of it for me.
I know. I
Right.
think we're getting to the point where the idea of special features, it's an outdated way of thinking. Like, I don't think anybody's looking for those anymore.
Yeah, well,
I mean-
definitely not like the EPK style stuff where it's talking heads.
Or
and-
even commentary tracks. Like, I don't think people care about those. And they used to be such a big thing when DVDs came out. Like, you could have commentary, deleted scenes, and outtakes, featurettes. I don't think anybody cares about that anymore. And it all goes by the wayside when you talk about digital streaming.
I mean, I think they could definitely bring that back in some way, especially Netflix. I do think it's only for a certain group of people because I don't think it was ever meant to be for the public audience. But I think like the DVD having that feature, people can learn from it. I mean, I remember watching commentaries on Tarantino movies and finding, scenes that didn't make the movie and being like, oh, this is awesome. But I'm not sure how, I mean, if you're not a film fan, then you just watch movies for pleasure or whatever, you probably don't care. Or, you'd rather not find out how the sausage is made. That could be just like your decision.
But
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about it is you might have someone that's just a casual movie fan. Say they love Marvel films, like most of the world. Maybe they do watch those bonus features and they kind of get that itch and they want to like learn about filmmaking.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like the old school bonus features were sort of like a film school, which is a cliche to say, but
And we'd all watch them. I know.
yeah.
Like,
And there's certain things like commentary wise, like I'll listen to a John Carpenter commentary because they're incredibly informative and funny, and just Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell riffing on the Evil Dead commentaries. Like those are fantastic. But like most movies, I'm not going to listen to a commentary.
I just recalled that one of my favorite DVDs to own was Sin City.
Yeah.
Because the process of making that movie was so unique at the time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it had some really cool special features about how they, how Robert Rodriguez shot that movie.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. He used to have like the 10-minute film school on all of his DVDs. He's just like a down and dirty filmmaker. He still does it in that independent style, even though he's kind of got the big budgets now.
Oh, before we go any further, we should get just a couple of quick basics out of the way. So just first of all, for anybody listening, just a blanket spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movies that we talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to continually say over the course of the show, don't listen because we're going to spoil it, because we're going to spoil it.
We're going to...
We'll try our best to keep the spoilers to the movies we're talking about. Sometimes we'll mention movies, associations to other movies, and we will talk about those other movies and spoil them as well. And we'll try our best not to do it. We apologize in advance.
And then the other thing is almost all the movies that we've picked, well, all of them are available somewhere for streaming.
Well, not always, but I will say, and this isn't an ad, but this is my love for this app. It's called Just Watch. And you just type in a movie you want to see, and it'll tell you where you can stream it, where you can buy it, and where you can rent it. And literally any movie, as anyone ever tells me, I just go to that app, punch in the movie, and then add it to my watch list. And then I know what to watch.
I've been using that too. And I'll type a movie in and it'll go, oh, you own it, you idiot.
Oh.
Wow. Well, and again, this is such a magical time we live in, because now, I mean, if you want to go back and watch a movie that's any older than 4 or 5 years, it's probably available to stream for somewhere for free, just with ads, maybe. But it's on demand. It's available at your fingertips.
Yeah, I think streaming...
It's pretty great.
I think the internet and streaming has really revolutionized how people watch movies, and you can really dive deep into anyone's catalog and find it somewhere. And yeah, I think for the most part it's unaltered. It might not be the best quality, or there are some movies we found that it's subbed poorly, and
Right.
that's not even because of the streaming service, but because of the people that subbed the movie just did a poor job of it.
If you're watching a foreign film, don't watch it dubbed. Watch it with subtitles.
Right. And hopefully it's subbed well as well. So.
And not that we should have to say this to anybody listening, but for the love of God, first of all, take off smooth motion on your televisions.
Yeah. Dad.
Don't fucking watch movies full screen. Don't watch a 4:3 pan and scan.
Yeah. I don't.
Is
I'm
that
glad
even
that's
a thing
done
anymore.
I'm glad
Yeah,
that's done.
Those days are over.
Holy shit.
Why was that ever even an option?
I mean, you still had the people that had the 4:3 televisions, and they thought,
yeah, it just fit the screen.
It fits my TV. That's how I want to see it.
I mean, but again, the people watch movies for various reasons, and sometimes it doesn't matter if it's wide or full, as long as this thing is happening. They're watching it.
I won't say who this person is to protect their anonymity, but someone that I know bought a 4K TV, and I tried to explain to them how you need a 4K Blu-ray player or some kind of 4K stream if you want to watch 4K content, and they were just like, but the screen's big. Is it that big? Yeah, they equated resolution with screen size, which is also, of course, not the same thing.
Right.
And don't watch movies on your phone, because David Lynch hates that.
Yeah, and we don't want David Lynch to be upset.
No.
Let's keep him happy.
Although Quibi has somehow turned that into a genre in itself. So that might be interesting. I don't know.
So why don't we get into the week's topic, which I'll leave it to Chris, because this week was Chris's pick. So go ahead, man.
Wow, a lot of pressure. So
First one out the gate.
I picked revenge thrillers, not for any particular reason. I just felt like this is a kind of a specific topic that a lot of people probably have films in mind when you think of. I don't think there's a lot of discussion about what revenge is or what a thriller is, but I think there's a lot of really good movies that fall under this genre. I mean, I didn't want to out the gate have you guys watching kung fu films or something.
We'll get there.
Because it'd probably be hard for you to find the ones that I would pick or whatever, but so I picked kind of a baseline genre that everyone's familiar with. There's a lot of choices to be had here.
There's a lot of revenge movies and there's a lot of thrillers, but there's not a lot of those two combined.
Yeah, I would say most revenge films don't fall into the category of thriller. I think Kill Bill, which is, of course...
Yeah.
Action revenge.
It's more action or kung fu stylized thing.
Right.
I wouldn't call it thriller.
Yeah, and we want to distinguish action and thrillers are different things, at least in our minds. So action-y has bigger set pieces. It's more about the actual action part of the movie.
Yeah.
Where thriller is more about the mystery and what's going to happen next.
Right. Not to be confused with these straight. And here's the thing. Drama, drama is another category that can get mixed up in the mix of whether it's a suspense thriller or drama or whatever.
Yeah.
But
right.
And drama does have suspense, but
sometimes
you have to distinguish it from a more pure thriller. And I don't know. And how, that's the part. How would you set that apart from just a straight drama?
Well, first of all, I think it's like a rectangle can be a square, but or a square can be a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't always a square. Because I think drama is so big, anything from Kill Bill to Social Network can both fit that category, right? So it's almost like, how can we make it more specific? And suspense and thriller, they are a bit more specific, but even then there's a huge kind of umbrella under that. So let's just say that just to give a rundown of what revenge thriller, obviously revenge and avenge are two different things. Revenge is one person's revenging something, that a wrongdoing that happened to them, where I think avenging is something that happened to a group of people, like superheroes avenge people that have been hurt, where like Nick Cage avenges somebody killing Mandy, or gets revenge on them.
Yeah, that's revenge for sure. I think the thing about revenge is that it's very personal.
Yeah, it's got to be a personal wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, so our three choices, real quick. Chris.
I Saw the Devil.
Sammer.
Gone Girl.
And I picked Memento. And I think we're not going to have any arguments about whether they fit the category.
Yeah, and some are stronger than other. I will say Gone Girl, you sort of have to watch it to realize it's a revenge movie. But some of them right off the bat, like I Saw the Devil, just reading the one-liner of it, you're like, oh, this is a revenge movie, clearly.
Right. This is a great first selection for us, because I think it does kind of embody our own personal tastes pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so.
First of all, the three movies that we picked are great movies. I imagine at some point or another we'll pick a topic and we'll be like, this is as good as it's gonna get, and we just might not and when I say good movies or great movies, I'm saying that they're actually well made, and like there's definitely a clear vision and story that's being told. And I think these three movies do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But that's not always going to be the case. I mean, I don't want to speak for the group, but we're of the philosophy that like every movie has some redeeming quality.
Yeah.
Unless it's just like a real piece of shit, but rarely does that ever happen.
Yeah. But yeah, it's gonna require us to watch genres we normally wouldn't, which is that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's start. Chris, you're up.
I want to hear about this movie. I love this movie.
I picked I Saw the Devil. It's a 2010 South Korean film. It's written and directed by a guy I don't think is very much a household name in America. His name's Kim Jee-Woon. When I picked revenge thrillers, I knew immediately that I was going to pick an Asian film. It was just the time for it. And obviously the first thing I thought of was Old Boy, which is probably one of the most notable revenge films. Definitely Asian revenge films, but overall, when you look up top revenge films online, Old Boy is usually on there. But there's another film that I think is almost as good, which is this one. And that one appears on a lot of lists too. And I was actually shocked. Like, I've been seeing this movie all over the place.
Are you saying this movie is almost as good as Old Boy, so Old Boy's better.
Yeah, I would say Old Boy is better.
Okay.
I didn't pick it because who has not talked about or seen Old Boy before?
I mean, I haven't, but now I really want to see it because I love this movie.
Well,
and if
you
that's
should
better-
see Old Boy, not the Spike Lee version.
Oh, right.
The original. But would you call Old Boy a revenge thriller, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're both thriller.
And I think one of the big things about a revenge movie that maybe is not quite in this film, but is in our other films, is there is kind of like a mystery aspect to it, which is kind of the thriller part of it. And Old Boy does have that mystery aspect where you don't know why things are happening. I'm not going to spoil Old Boy. Just watch it, especially since Samer hasn't seen it, because the ending is amazing. But anyway, so everyone knows probably who Bong Joon-ho is, because he won all the Oscars for Parasite. Then there's Park Chan-wook, who did Old Boy and the Vengeance trilogy, it's called. So there's those are options to me. Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and then Lady Vengeance. They're not related, but they're part of what's called the Vengeance trilogy. So Kim Ji-woon is actually, he's probably 2 or 3 in my favorite Korean directors. His films have like just this bombastic, I almost want to say, I want to compare him to like a Ridley Scott. There's all these like epic shots. Everything just feels big, even though I think I Saw the Devil is kind of a smaller story for him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that feels really big. And he is not pigeonholed by any genre. He's done comedies, horror films. He did a film called A Tale of Two Sisters that was remade in Hollywood, and that's a horror film.
Where does this fall in his line of work? Like, was it early in his career?
2010 is like in the middle. So, you know, he's obviously still working. His films, he started in the late 90s. He actually did one of my favorite Korean films, which is called A Bittersweet Life. And that's more of a gangster film, which shares the lead actor from I Saw the Devil. But that's an amazing film, and it's supposedly going to get a remake as well, like everything that's good. So yeah, I've been following this director. I've seen almost all of his movies. He did a film called The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, which I highly recommend. It's a send-up of a spaghetti western.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a lot of westerny feel in this movie.
Yeah, totally. This movie came after that one, like right after.
Oh, okay.
And the film that people might know him for is, it's funny because it sort of sticks out in his whole body of work. It's The Last Stand, which stars Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, wow.
So that's the only Hollywood film he's made to date. I don't know if he's got any coming up, but his most recent films are all in South Korea. Anyway, I Saw the Devil. The story is there's a Secret Service agent. His name is Kim. He's played by the actor Lee Byung-hun, who a lot of people would know from the G.I. Joe movies.
Would we, though?
Shame on you. I mean,
I've never seen that.
Never seen them. I forgot those existed.
He played Storm Shadow. But he's a fantastic actor. He plays the secret agent. His wife is murdered by a serial killer in the opening scene. So the entire film is this cat and mouse game between him and the serial killer. The serial killer is played by Choi Min-sik, who was the lead in Old Boy. So you have these powerhouse actors sort of squaring off. The agent, Kim, is incredibly handy, incredibly resilient. He catches the serial killer, beats the shit out of him, lets him go.
He makes it look really easy.
Yeah.
He's good.
Well,
He's really
I mean,
good
the thing that I really like about this movie, apart from the fact that it veers very closely into horror territory, is sort of this, it's like this battle of these two Goliaths. So you have the agent who's like sleek. His movements are very methodical. And then you have the serial killer who's kind of an oaf. Mm-hmm. He uses like hammers to fight and pipes.
Dude, there is so much blunt force head trauma in this movie.
Yes.
That's like the main way anybody gets hurt is just pummeling with hard objects.
And the thing about this film
crazy.
too, and I texted you guys, it is brutal.
Yeah.
Like the revenge aspect of it is not messing around.
Dude.
Just an advisory. There's a lot of rape and there's a lot of violence in this movie.
Well, he never
so for anyone
he never
who is,
actually rapes anyone.
Right, but it's like
also for a good long time, no one actually dies. Or I mean, someone dies at the beginning, but he's just toying with him. Like he doesn't actually kill anybody for quite some time.
I mean that's the plot. It's a 2.5 hour cat and mouse chase between a killer and a very trained secret agent. You know, there's not a whole lot of mystery to it. It's very straightforward. The action is brutal. And what I really like about it is the chase scenes are just incredibly exciting. Really well shot.
Do we ever find out why he's just killing all these women?
Not,
or is he just like a sadistic perv?
I don't think they ever outright say anything about it.
No.
Yeah.
And also, there's lots of other people in the world of this film that are just as evil. Like everyone he comes across is also doing evil things. Like the taxi driver and the guy in the back seat of the taxi.
That's
What's
like my
that
favorite
about?
scene in the movie.
Oh, it's amazing when the camera's spinning around.
Yes.
And he's just
it is incredibly shot.
stabby.
So, yeah. The serial killer, you know, he gets away, or he's actually let go. He gets a taxi. Well, the taxi is being driven by...
Another...
Well, there's someone in the taxi, and they're basically robbing the driver, because the driver's in the trunk.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Dead,
you know,
I think.
they think, oh, they got a mark. Well, they picked up a serial killer, and he stabs the shit out of them.
Right.
What I wanted to say was, when I was watching this, I was like, holy shit, this is like they really don't give much setup, right?
Yeah.
This guy just kills this woman, and he just so happens her husband's a secret agent, and he's gonna find out who killed her and kill him. Presumably. And to me, that's like, this is what I wish a fucking Batman or Joker movie was.
Right.
Like, this is, and the similarities are like the fact that he finds the killer and doesn't kill him, and he like has some restraint, and then just kind of like has like these little devices that keep track of him, and just follows him until he's like, you are just utterly insane. And I don't want to go straight to the end, but to the point where he's like, you find out what he's trying to do to him at the end, and he still doesn't quite get it. But also you could look at it as he's slowly turning into chaos and madness. Like, he's slowly turning into the killer himself.
Yeah.
Because he's just gone so insane and like is fixated on the wrongdoing that has happened to him. I mean,
he becomes a monster to track down a monster.
Am I correct that, I guess it's his sister-in-law?
Yeah.
Dies.
Yeah.
Is that right?
They don't show it, but I'm pretty sure, yes.
I thought there was a flash of her like on the ground or something. It's at that weird part near the end where like right before he picks him up by like turning his car into him and like just grabbing him out of the street. Right before that, it gets a little fuzzy because the cops are going after him.
Well, the father-in-law he was alive, but I'm pretty sure he died right then and there.
Yeah. That's where
I think
got
it's
fuzzy.
implied that the sister-in-law was also dead.
So he's lost so much. Just to kind of get his vengeance.
Because of his revenge.
He can't quite see that this is the wrong way of going about it. Much in the same way Batman, really. I mean, that's why I'm like, this is, I wish this was fucking Batman. Like, I wish this were the Dark Knight.
Right.
That's very dark. It's a very dark night.
Yeah. Like,
very dark.
You know, what's funny is that I'm going to spoil this comic book. Although if you haven't read it, then you're not going to read comic books, because this is like the gold standard of comic books. The Killing Joke in the comic book, it's pretty short, but Batman is just so fed up with Joker, and he's like beating the shit out of him, and then Joker just offers a joke, and that's kind of how it ends. Like, they're both just clearly insane, and they're going on this cat and mouse game forever. They adapted it into a movie that has more of a storyline, and it shows that like the Joker, like, I believe, rapes Commissioner Gordon's daughter, who I can't remember her name. Barbara.
Yeah.
I think they imply that, or like he takes pictures of her naked, and like it implies some type, and that's like, I've never even seen that in like comic. Like, I never thought comic books could be that dirty,
Right.
But the thing is about that movie is people were outraged by it and they hated it. So maybe the Batman, and they can't do something this gruesome. But I so wish that they could.
Well, there is that Batman movie coming out.
I mean, you have to protect. Unfortunately, I think DC has to protect its brand to some degree.
Yeah.
You can't go that far off the rails.
Also, these are big budget movies, so they need teenagers to see it.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't have a hard R movie.
Yeah, you can't make it. I mean, I guess Joker did well, but
I guess it does go pretty far, Joker. I mean, to the point of,
Yeah.
remember back when that came out, all the backlash of that movie of
Yeah.
Right.
glorifying violence and
Yeah. So maybe
anarchy.
this is just not suitable.
Yeah.
But
and
if you can stomach it, you see this movie because this is and imagine the main character being Batman or Joker and just have a good time. Oh, and speaking of which, the cannibal guy, the cannibalistic murderer, he's like laughing at Kim. He's laughing at Kim, and he's like, "You think this is funny?" And he literally like opens his mouth open, so he's like,
Yeah.
you have
Oh,
a permanent
God,
smile, which
yeah.
is like that's straight from The Dark Knight,
right.
And yeah, they keep talking about it in the movie about who's winning.
right?
And I mean, basically, Jang's point is like, I win kind of no matter what. Just the fact that you're
Right.
going to these lengths
Yeah.
to get me, I've already won.
Yeah. And at the end, he's won, but he's also lost everything.
That ending, that was a very brutal scenario that Kim sets up for him. And
Oh, yeah.
I didn't see it coming, but I was
Yeah, I
shocked in a good.
I'm not sure I quite understood the logistics of it. So he has a guillotine above his head, and
Which the serial killer had. That was his
right. That's how he
place.
killed. That's how he
Mhm.
killed his wife. Kim has a guillotine above Jang's head,
Yeah.
and he puts the rope in his mouth. So if he were to let go of the rope, the guillotine would fall, and he'd cut his own head off,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah.
Which is great because again, he just like Batman, he's not killing anyone; he's killing himself.
That's
Yeah.
like a saw
in a-
contraption, though, because you're not really giving
But-
him much of a choice.
But he
Obviously.
invites
Yeah.
he invites his parents and his
son.
son. So and they're like, and the door is locked. So I was like, oh, are they gonna open the door that somehow drops the gate? Like I didn't quite understand.
That's what it was, I think.
That is what it was.
Oh, I thought him letting go. Oh, they were like as they were opening it, it just loosened in his mouth.
No,
Yeah.
if I understand it correctly, it was also
It pulled
rigged-
it out of his
it-
mouth.
by opening the door, it yanks it out of his mouth. So
Yeah.
Right.
it takes
exactly.
the choice out of his hands.
Okay, I was a little confused because it seemed like he did it willingly.
No, it was like
Because he
yanking
didn't-
his teeth out at one point.
No,
Like,
yeah. And
Yeah.
the rope was like starting to rip because he was holding onto it. And
Brutal.
then-
But so that
Yeah.
kind of got him. So that kind of did get him at the end there. Like,
yeah, and I think that's the only way that Kim could have won was for him to be killed in that way, where essentially his parents killed him.
Yeah.
and son, don't
Unless
forget.
the son comes out for revenge too. It's a cycle, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
wouldn't you-
I don't
Yeah.
think they cared about him that much.
Right.
Yeah, it seemed like they
They knew he was a
they
good
didn't
for
like him.
nothing.
So, I mean, the takeaway from that ending, I guess, is that nobody wins.
I think at the end he finally because Kim starts to cry as
Yeah.
he's walking away because
Yeah.
Yeah.
so he can finally like resume being miserable
Grief.
because his wife is dead.
It's like grief. But
Yeah.
by that
Yeah.
by that logic, taking revenge worked because it allowed him to grieve.
Also, he
Um,
stopped a lot of criminals in the process.
That's true.
Like he stopped a lot of particularly women from being like raped and murdered.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he didn't really care.
Yeah,
it was
he
almost like,
didn't-
just collateral damage that he was saving other people.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
focused on him and him alone.
Almost in a way using that to his advantage because it dropped Jang's guard so he can get the jump on him.
Yeah, like there was the woman who almost got raped or kind of did
There was
get
the
raped.
schoolgirl and then the nurse.
The nurse,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh no, don't go anywhere. You need to help mend this
Save
guy's."
his life. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because he was about to,
So it had nothing to
torture him
do.
again.
It had nothing to do with protecting the innocent.
No.
He's a bad
yeah,
man.
Yeah.
Kim's bad.
It does have it does have a lot of like close-ups of just people's eyes and like it just felt like a Western
Yeah.
more so than a good versus evil, although they were both bad people.
The Western thing, there was a great when they first meet face to face in that
The greenhouse.
the greenhouse. It's almost like a Western standoff. Like they,
Yep.
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah,
cool.
he appears under the light in like the distance. Also, that the way that chase in the greenhouse is shot is very cool because they do like an overhead tracking shot as they run through, which I thought
Mm.
was really neat.
They did some cool tricks with the lighting of this movie.
Yeah, I love
Um,
the cannibal's house. I don't know if it was his house or they were squatting there, but the way that was like production designed,
Yeah.
I thought it looked like a house of horrors.
So Chris, let me ask you a question. How
Yeah.
so you just came about this just looking through this director's filmography and
I had seen, a bunch of his previous films. Like I said, Tale of Two Sisters. You know, that's from 2003. I started watching Korean movies actually in around the year 2000. So this was right when I was like deep into it. After that, it was A Bittersweet Life, and then The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. So at that point, you know, Kim Ji-woon was on my radar. This had an American release, so of course I was going to check it out.
Oh, so did you end up seeing it in a theater? Or...
I didn't, no.
Oh. See, I would love to see this in a theater.
As far as like his films go, though, this is one of the ones that, like I mentioned before, it's kind of low key compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah, it makes me want to watch his other movies more now. I mean,
like The Good, the Bad, and the Weird is sort of a goofy, fun. It's like a spaghetti western, and it's huge, and it's got the widescreen and horse chases, and it's really awesome. A lot of the big Korean actors are in it, and it's almost got, as the title suggests, a good, the bad, and the ugly vibe, because there are characters, you know, the good, the bad, and the weird. Korean films, I think a lot of people, you might get like almost whiplash when you watch them, because they never really stick to like a single genre. You might have like a movie like this where it does have some really dark humor mixed in. That's like a staple of Korean films. They're almost always brutal like this too. Maybe not as gory, but if you watch a Korean gangster movie, people are getting the shit kicked out of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It doesn't sugarcoat anything.
That scene where he just starts hammering the guy's
dick. Yeah.
just to get him to talk. And then later when the cops are like talking to him, they're almost making fun of him. They're like, "Who broke your balls?"
Right.
That's the way they word it.
They still manage to put some levity into it. Like, it's still kind of funny sometimes.
One of my favorite bits is when the serial killer is in the doctor's office and he's dressed like a soccer player, pretending that he had a soccer injury, and the doctor thinks he's like a youngster, even though he clearly isn't.
I'm not sure when you guys watched this, did you feel this, but like I kept wondering, like, oh, is this the end of the movie? Like, it's kind of a long movie.
Oh yeah,
it is. There are points where I'm like, oh, this is it. He found the guy. That's it. This is over. And then it doesn't end.
Yeah, I remember thinking like 45 minutes in, when he'd already found him and was about to kill him,
like, oh.
thinking like, where's this movie going to go from here? If he's already at this point. And then you slowly realize what he's doing, which is toying with him.
He tells him in that scene, like, I'm going to make you suffer. It's going to be a real complete revenge.
Yeah.
So like,
and he never,
I think
Kim never is caught in any way. Like, he, like, besides like the cops stopping him, or his family saying like, look what you like, being upset with him.
Yeah.
There's never a moment where he's like, oh fuck, Jang's got me, I'm gonna die. Like, I did I screwed myself. He's always got a jump on him in some way, shape, or form, but the guy just keeps coming back. That's like his superpower. He's relentless.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yeah, this is, I think that what distinguishes this revenge thriller from the others is it goes hard on the revenge part. From 45 minutes into the end of the movie is this relentless revenge.
And they mention revenge,
for
and
almost,
talks about this is revenge.
Oh yeah. And for almost the whole time, he's in control of the situation the entire time, and he's just fucking with them. And then the last third of the movie, it isn't just a revenge, it turns into more of a cat and mouse. At that point, that's, I think, where the thriller part comes in, because then you don't know who's actually going to win anymore.
Right.
Yeah, because he does kill Kim's fiance. I think they were engaged, not actually married.
Right.
His fiance's family. Kim's last ties to his humanity, basically.
It's almost like it would feel less of a thriller without that cat and mouse section. You're saying that this is the most revenge of the three movies.
I think most revenge. I mean, the ending, it's like the ending is just him talking about what revenge is and what it's doing to him. It's not as subtle as like the other movies.
Right.
But to me, it's just a joy. Like that, it's definitely the thriller of it is just a joyride. He's so relentless that you're like, fuck, man. Like, you're watching this movie and you're like, just fucking end. And it's not that you want the movie to end, but you just want him to like just
kill
die.
the guy.
Get over it.
Yeah.
I think generally speaking, thematically, people who take revenge, it doesn't go well for them.
Right.
They turn into someone they don't want to be.
Right.
Yeah,
That seems to be a common theme in all these movies. But if you look at, here's the crazy thing, if you look at like Kill Bill, that's not the case at all. Like the bride is exactly who she wants to be by the end of the movie.
Well, but she suffered. So her whole like family died.
Yeah, but I don't think that her revenge is never looked at as anything but a positive. It's not like a thing that defeats her or is her downfall or changes her into a villain. It's like, no, revenge is a good thing. By getting it, you'll get your daughter back and like all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
It's interesting. We chose 3 movies that I think all in some way leave you with the idea that taking revenge is problematic.
I mean, Kill Bill is like a fantasy.
Yeah.
There's nothing
sure.
realistic about Kill Bill. The villains are like comic book characters. I mean, obviously you want to see the serial killer bite the bullet, but at the same time it's kind of grounded in reality, and you do see that brutality from both sides and like what Kim has to go through to get this guy. So it makes it like at the end you're relieved that the serial killer's dead, but it's like at what cost?
Yeah.
Right.
Because all these other good people died, and this guy is left with nothing.
Yeah.
The bride got her daughter back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. She got
This guy-
rewarded.
Right.
There was
Kim
almost
gets
no
nothing.
downside.
Right.
Let's move on to the next topic.
Let's move on.
Well, so Zach,
So
what was your pick?
So I picked Christopher Nolan's Memento.
Well, that's the thing. I have this condition.
A condition?
It's my memory.
Amnesia.
No. It's different from that. I have no short-term memory. I know who I am. I know all about myself. Since my injury, I can't make new memories.
First movie, right?
It's not his first movie. It's his second movie.
Second movie. Right.
What was his first movie called?
Following?
Yes,
Yeah, it was like
Following.
the founder following, yeah.
And I haven't seen that one, but this seems to be the one that really put him on the map. This checks a lot of boxes for me in my own personal taste for a few reasons, and I'll get to those first. The late 90s, 99, 98 to like 2001, I think one of the best eras of filmmaking in general. There's been a lot of writing and a lot of think pieces about how 99 specifically
Yeah.
is...
The Ringer itself has a rewatchables 99 edition.
Yeah, a lot of people view 99 as one of the best years of filmmaking. I mean, I know there's a few other ones. There's in the 70s somewhere, but it definitely is up there for the best year of filmmaking. It just so happens to also be the era that Chris and I were at the height of our going to movies every week, high school movie love.
Yeah.
In 99, I was at sophomore. We were sophomores in high school. And I'm sure, Sammer, you were seeing movies too. I mean, you're only a few years younger than us.
Yeah, no, I don't think I saw, maybe I did see this in theaters, but I definitely heard about it when it came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, people were like, oh, this guy is pretty good.
Yeah.
This director is really good. I was like, interesting.
I mean, it just so happens that we grew up in an era that just hit that moment where we were also just really loving movies and happened to get this year or this little era of some of the most groundbreaking movies of our lifetime. And I think Memento falls like right in that category.
Yeah.
Young filmmaker, like trying to make his mark. And the other thing that it hits for me is I'm a big fan of indie filmmaking, like more low budget filmmaking. Directors sort of at their start of their career before they have bigger budgets.
No, what was the budget for this?
I
Out of
knew you were going to
curiosity.
ask that question. I didn't look
It
it
was
up
9
before.
million. So it was
It's
9
$9 million.
$9 million.
Because it's like, what is indie anymore is the hard part. So I always think like, what's just a lower budget?
Yeah.
So I think like under 25 million is low budget, or is that not even realistic anymore?
Are you talking now or in 2000?
I guess in both, yeah. Like in 2000, I mean, obviously 9 is a low budget movie, but I mean more in because are you speaking just like how it was released or how much money?
I
was
guess how
actually
much
put into
money
it?
was involved in the
Yeah.
process, and it's
This is
also
definitely low budget.
it's Christopher. And look, I mean, this week's episode we have a bunch of heavy hitter directors. I mean, Fincher and Nolan. No doubt they're like amazing directors, but I like seeing someone like Nolan when they had to make a movie on a budget, when they had limitations. I mean,
Yeah.
he still makes great movies, but I appreciate the fact that, he made this and didn't get to have everything he wanted because he didn't have a blank check that he probably has now to make his movies. And I'm more inspired by that kind of filmmaking, especially in that era when it still wasn't quite so easy to put any movie together. I'm sure most people who have any love for film have probably seen this movie before, but it has been 20 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but there's a portion of, I don't know, people out there listening right now who were too young to have experienced this movie when they were when it came out, or maybe not even alive yet. So anyway, we can have a whole discussion later about how 99 is the best year ever in cinema.
We
me.
should have that as a topic, right? Best movie of 99.
Best movie of 99? Ooh.
I'm a big 84 fan too. 84 is a really good year, not just
Interesting.
because it's a year I was born, but there's some great ones.
Yeah. Well, we could do a whole sub-series of episodes down the line of just picking a year that we want to argue.
Oh, that would be like
that we want to argue
we
is the
could
best.
do like our own Oscars every year.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about Memento.
Let's talk about Memento now. So of course, Guy Pearce is the lead. He plays Leonard, and the basic premise of the movie is you have an unreliable narrator in that he doesn't have any short-term memory, but he's out to get revenge on the criminal who raped and murdered his wife and caused his short-term memory loss. That's the setup. The whole thing is told in reverse. So you're seeing it from the last thing that happens, and then segment by segment, you're then seeing how each thing, you're just going backwards in time to the beginning to get to why he's doing what he's doing, which is a brilliant setup that to this day I still watch and go like, how did they make this work so well? It's just, to me, such a well-crafted thing. And in between each segment is a black and white section where he's sort of talking about what's wrong with him, about what he used to do before his memory loss, about a guy named Sammy Jenkins, and about trying to collect evidence and collect clues to this murder when you don't have any short-term memory, and also how to develop a system to remember things, like writing notes. One of the best imagery, of course, in the movie, and the most memorable imagery, is that he has all these tattoos all over his body.
Which some he tattoos himself, but there's one in specific where he goes to a tattoo parlor.
You can tell that,
Which
like,
to me
some
is
are
like,
hand
if you're
done.
Yeah, they show him doing one of them.
But to me, as like a tattoo artist, you're like, this seems really
Maybe I should call the police.
Yeah.
And I mean, the
upsetting.
one across his chest that's in reverse, you'd have
to
to
see in the mirror.
You'd have to.
One says kill him on his ribs. It's like, oh, interesting.
If I'm a tattoo artist, I'm not gonna look at the other tattoos and put two and two together here.
No questions asked.
That logic aside, it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it's super striking.
It's it's the first thing you think of when you think of this movie is like white hair, right? White spiky hair, total late 90s look, and then tattooed body. Speaking of the cast, it's like a wonderful who's who of late 90s cinema.
Oh man, speaking of the Matrix,
you got Carrie-Anne Moss
reunion.
You got Carrie-Anne Moss. You got Joey Pants.
Yeah.
So I've never quite understood the Joey Pants fans. I think he's a great actor. It's just like he's specific. Like he can only play that specific. I mean, he's a character actor, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, I read up a little bit in I did some very deep research by looking at the trivia section of IMDb, but the reason that Joe and Carrie-Anne Moss are in the movie is because of The Matrix.
Right. Okay.
Because Christopher Nolan saw The Matrix and thought Carrie-Anne Moss would be good as Natalie, and then Carrie-Anne Moss recommended Joe Pantoliano as Teddy, specifically because they became friends in The Matrix.
Oh.
And they didn't necessarily want to go with him for Teddy because he was typecast as like kind of a bad guy. And
sniveling worm.
They didn't want to give that feel for Teddy, but I think he pulls it off pretty well.
Yeah.
Not to mention you got Stephen Tobolowsky, the journeyman actor that's been in everything you've ever seen, who does, for a small role for Sammy Jenkins, it's a really moving role, actually. Like there are parts of this movie that I was almost weeping for Sammy Jenkins.
Yeah, it's so sad when he's in the home.
Yeah. Or no,
when you're talking about the part where he has to inject his, is it his wife?
Yeah,
right?
when he's injecting his wife, it's heartbreaking, and he like. And I mean, I'll just throw this fun fact out there too. Apparently, Stephen Tobolowsky had taken some kind of medication at some point of his life where he had short-term memory loss, amnesia.
Oh, interesting.
So he says that's the reason he got the part, is because he actually had real-life experience with amnesia. So I mean, yeah, the cast is great. I mean, I guess I could just talk about the ending briefly, is he is being taken advantage of by a lot of people. Carrie-Anne Moss's character is taking advantage of him, and Teddy, he is using him, but he's also his friend. He's actually a cop, and he actually is a good guy, but he's kind of a bad guy too.
Isn't he he's like a corrupt cop?
He's still trying to get the bad guys, but he's using Leonard to kind of do the dirty work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the stuff that he can't do as a lawman, but he can have this person.
Right.
do.
And he's also, at least he tells himself that he's doing him a favor because he's giving him like
what he wants.
The mission of trying to avenge his wife just over and over again. He gives him the opportunity to just keep experiencing this revenge, even though the reveal is that he killed the real guy a long time ago. It didn't matter. It didn't help him feel any better.
Right. He also actively burns the fact, like, doesn't he burn the photograph of the killer or no?
That was Natalie's boyfriend.
Right. That was Dodd.
Jimmy.
So basically at the end, after it's been revealed to Leonard in the moment that Teddy's just using him for his own gain, that he's going to set himself up to go after Teddy as the new John G. Is it?
Right.
Yeah.
John G's the murderer.
Yeah. I mean, so basically Teddy isn't really the murderer at all, but Leonard in the moment sets himself up with all the clues he needs in order to basically kill Teddy.
Oh, maybe I misread it. I thought he was so dissatisfied with the realization that he had killed the murderer already that he was like, how can I erase this memory? And that's when he writes, don't trust this person. This person lies a lot. Like, it's like the end of Shutter Island where it's like he can't admit that his job isn't done, so he does it to himself again and again.
No,
or am I misreading
I
that?
think it's different than that because, I mean, Leonard could just kill Teddy right there. Like, oh my God, you've been using me. I'm going to kill you. But Teddy says, you're not a murderer. You're not going to kill me. I mean, vengeance on your wife is one thing, but you're not just going to murder me for no reason.
Yeah.
Leonard knows that if he thinks that it's his wife's killer, he will murder him. So the reason he burns like all the evidence is so that there are no clues left other than the ones that lead him to think that Teddy is the killer. And in fact, he knows that if he kills Teddy, that'll be the end of it. He won't continue the cycle anymore.
He's like tying up the loose ends.
Yeah. So once he kills Teddy, like his journey of vengeance is over.
It seems so interesting that they wouldn't show that then.
Which part?
Like, if that's like, why wouldn't the movie continue and then him chase Teddy and kill Teddy?
He does.
Well, it starts with him killing Teddy.
That's the movie.
Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
That's the whole movie.
Oh, that's the whole movie.
This is the
right?
brilliance of this movie.
Is the
like
beginning.
Looking at the end of it as like, oh, that's the new story. You're right.
Right. And
yeah,
the very first shot of the movie is him shooting Teddy. So we know that he does it. That he gets there. Yeah.
What's interesting about this is that it does take a lot of patience and like it asks a lot of the audience.
Yeah, and the brilliance of it is, I mean, I know it's asking a lot of the audience because you're constantly withholding information from them.
Yeah.
Every new segment was like unwrapping another little gift. It was endlessly enjoyable. Every time we'd go back to like what happened, I'd be like, another little joyful gift.
Right.
It was rewarding. The entire thing. It was constantly rewarding.
So brilliantly constructed.
It's consistently answering the question you just had.
Yeah, exactly. It's fast paced too. Like, I haven't watched this in a long time, and I kind of remembered thinking maybe it was slow, but rewatching it, I thought like the scenes were short. They felt right, like perfectly paced.
Yeah,
between
I
showing
think he
the
does
black
a lot
and white.
of so throughout the movie they cut between black and white and it's usually his memories are in black and white. So they do, I mean, it's not cheating, but they do a lot of like, this is what happened. We're showing like a little bit ahead and then going back to the timeline is strange. I'm sure like there's a whole article about it.
You're doing mind gymnastics watching it because the black and white stuff's in chronological order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not all of it. And here's the thing. The black and white is him in the hotel, which actually is just, it's not a memory, it's just not in the right order. It's happening chronologically.
Well, no, the black and white stuff eventually fades into color, and then that's the beginning
when
of
it connects.
The movie. Yeah.
But then there's other black and white stuff, which is him looking back on his life before the accident. But it's not actually real. It's not, he's an unreliable narrator, and what you think you're seeing is actually not true. It's the story he's telling himself. Sammy Jenkins isn't even that's not really what happened to Sammy Jenkins.
Yeah.
It's what happened to him.
He's telling himself that story.
He was the one that had the wife with diabetes. He was the one that killed his wife accidentally.
And Sammy was a fraud, but he sort of like combined their stories into the story that he tells himself.
Right, and he eventually it's the whole conditioning thing where eventually he just believed it. I mean, it's a lot more like about his psyche inside of his head than you'd realize.
That's the cool thing about it, and this is like where I applaud Nolan, is that the way it was cut, it was so fast paced, and sometimes like, I mean, he does a lot of dissolves and stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of, but that worked because you are just shifting to what seemingly is the next day, because you're not sure if it's going forward or backwards or whatever, and you start to feel as if your memory is shifting as you're watching this, and you're like, wait, that's not what happened, and then you realize, oh, this is actually what happened. And so the pacing is well done in that way. You know, in terms of like just directing, like you have to trust that you can actually pull that off, or you're just going to really confuse your audience, and then it's just crappy, you know? Yeah.
But just to quickly, before we wrap it up on this movie, just to kind of bring it back to the genre thing, I think there's no doubt that it's a revenge movie. His entire motivation is to get revenge for the death of his wife.
Yeah.
But he doesn't realize it, but he's constantly just reliving the revenge. Well, it's weird because it's never enough, but that's because of his memory loss. Similar to our first movie, where it was never really enough for Kim either, but for different reasons.
Right.
The thriller, I think, no one would ever think this was an action movie. I would never consider this an action movie, but I think the fact that it's told in reverse, the fact that there's the mystery of it, gives it the thriller edge. You don't know what's going to happen. There's no way you're going to know.
He's chasing something or someone. I mean, maybe it's more of a noir, but I think it definitely is a revenge thriller.
No doubt.
In some way, yeah. So are we done with Memento?
I'm good with Memento.
Chris?
Yeah. It's a great movie.
I will say, I just want to say, I read one thing, like the DVD release, you can actually put it in order, in a sequential order, and watch it.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
Anyway, I picked David Fincher's Gone Girl.
He actually expected me to love him unconditionally. Then he dragged me, penniless, to the navel of this great country and found himself a newer, younger, bouncier, cool girl. You think I'd let him destroy me and end up happier than ever? No fucking way.
Which came out in 2014, and this movie, this was right off the heels of The Social Network and Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, which wasn't that great, but it still had Fincher and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and they like made these amazing. I mean, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo might not be that strong, but it still like just looks beautiful, and
still Fincher, baby, still Fincher,
and it's still Fincher, who is probably one of my favorite directors, at least working right now. When I saw this movie, I hadn't read anything about it. I know it was based off of a Gillian Flynn book. And I just thought, like, it doesn't matter what this movie could be about, literally anything. If it's got Fincher and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I'm going to watch it. So the synopsis of the movie is that Ben Affleck and Rosamund Pike are in a shitty relationship, and she goes missing. And she is super famous. Like she wrote these Amazing Amy books.
Oh, her parents wrote them.
She's Amazing Amy.
She's based on
They based her childhood off of this book, which is a little like, I think they do mention that it is plagiarism.
Well, it's fucked up because it's a better version of her.
It's pretty scummy what they do.
That might really be why she ends up, we find out, being the way she is, like kind of her childhood.
So literally half the movie you're watching, they cut back and forth between their relationship and how they met and how it developed, and it became very like he becomes very lazy and cheating on her, and she kind of just puts up a tough front. And then halfway through the movie you realize that she actually faked her own death, and she's just trying to frame him, make him look like a piece of shit, and just literally escape the world as if both of them never existed, right? That's kind of her fairy tale idea. And it was that moment, and this is an hour into the movie.
Yeah.
It's a 2.5 hour movie. So this is an hour into the movie, and I audibly was like, what the fuck is happening right now? And for the people around me were like, just as shocked. Like, no one was like, shut the fuck up. They were like, oh my God, what is like that moment in the movie just tore me because I was like, this is a whole different movie now. This has become like a B movie. Now it's an A+ movie, you know? So yeah, so now it becomes her faking her own death, and she just has a bunch of money and does all these things to frame him and live her life a bit until she commits suicide. And she does stuff like she'll eat a ton of food to gain weight, so she'll look a little different. She wears a wig. She gives herself a black eye. She's like become incredibly twisted.
Will do anything. She'll basically do anything to herself.
She's just watching the news and watching this play out and like watching him smirk and take pictures where
Ben
he
does not play that well. I mean, the character, Ben is good in the movie, but the character does, I mean, to smile in pictures like that's a bad idea.
Well, the
like,
thing
why
is,
would you do that?
Here's how great Fincher is, because in the beginning, I feel like you're very much on his side. And like, if you had a wife that went missing, I feel like, you know, someone taking a picture of you, like you feel like you would say no, but in the moment you're just like so dazed about what's happening. You just say, yeah, you know, you're like, yeah. And then you instinctively try to smile in pictures. And then you realize, oh, that looks bad.
Yeah.
So,
right.
And
so
of course,
just,
the media grabs onto that immediately.
Right.
Tears them up.
And a specific media anchor woman, Ellen Abbott, that's what it is. She just hammers him and like
accuses of him like having an intimate relationship with his twin sister. Like,
accusing him of like, oh, they're more. And then someone says twin says. So there's just a lot of like framing him to look bad, and then the media totally biting on it to the point where Ben Affleck has to hire Tyler Perry to shape his answers and stuff.
If I understand this correctly, like she wants him to be found guilty of murder and get executed. Like she wants him to die.
Yeah.
Right. Because it can't be enough that they just divorce. Because there was a lot of times I was asking myself, like, why can't he just... She has a lot of power right there. They mentioned like how the house is in her name.
Yeah. She had a prenup.
Yeah. She had and the bar is in her name. Like it's just there's so many things. Like why not just divorce him? You know.
I was thinking of that too, but I think wasn't she saying that basically she used all of her money to move there and then the rest of it went into the bar?
And her parents got a lot of it.
Like he took all of her resources and money. Like if she got that divorce, she wouldn't have much left. Isn't that kind of the
I don't
idea?
think so because of the prenup. But it's laid out in the film. She's got a history of being a psycho.
Right. We come to find out later that it's more than just
like
basic.
She wants
revenge.
to destroy him, just like she's destroyed the first boyfriend by claiming he raped her, and he became a sex offender. Yeah. And then Neil Patrick Harris, who was a little creepy, but didn't deserve to be murdered
brutally.
She hashes out a plan to go back to Ben Affleck, go back to her home by saying this old boyfriend of hers kidnapped her and she struggled and got out and managed to kill him and leave. So the revenge part of it is the most interesting part because it's not necessarily somebody's dead and then they want to again kill him. She felt like her life was robbed of, which is like a feeling you can't necessarily quit. And like I think that's why it spoke to me so much, because it's not like an eye for an eye. It's like, no, you took something that is almost immeasurable from me, so I'm just going to mess with you in a way that is unconceivable in many ways.
But I think in her mind she thinks it's even. She thinks it is eye for an eye.
Yeah.
But that's
which I think is insane.
Her twisted.
Yeah.
Because she is insane.
Yeah.
Not only that, but she has, well, out of the three, she's clearly got the most elaborate revenge plan of any of these movies.
Yeah.
Maybe of any revenge movie in general.
Yeah.
It's like Ocean's 11 status preparing for a heist.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Step 35.
You know, I was mentioning how the other movies, I Saw the Devil and Memento, the setup is not big, as Gone Girl is. And I think with that setup, with the way they set up Gone Girl and how it's basically an hour of like you thinking it's just going to be someone that's a murder mystery and we're trying to find out who killed this girl. The movie's literally called Gone Girl. Mm-hmm. And then it turns into, no, this is a revenge movie, and all of the things that you previously just thought we're going to explain why they're wrong.
Yeah.
To me, that's like you've upped the ante. You've changed. It's like he changed genres in the middle of the movie. Right.
Yeah. Also, unreliable narrator, because you find out that all of her diary posts are not quite real. So the things you've been seeing about him pushing her to the ground and the stuff that kind of makes him look particularly bad were not real, or we don't know how much of it was real, I guess.
Yeah, and
Right.
and they even have the narration of both of them and Ben Affleck and how he met her and her impression of him early on, and you just think like, oh, this is a beautiful couple.
Yeah.
And it's totally not until you get an hour in. And maybe revenge movies and unreliable narratives kind of go hand in hand. Again, you are blinded by revenge, and it turns you into something that you're not. So
Yeah.
it's unreliable. There's a lot of talk about her saying like, oh, I'm supposed to be the cool girl, the girl that, watches football with the guys, and the girl that will drink a beer or whatever. And I'm like, she's explaining misogyny in a way that is more specific and more relatable than I've ever seen. But she's still the crazy one, which is interesting because it makes this whole idea of, is the misogyny, is the way she was raised causing her to feel dismissed by her husband, or is it like, it's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, is this the thing that made her crazy? And I think like it's a great movie because it opens that conversation up, and it like makes you think about what is actually happening in relationships that you might not notice until like someone actually says like, this actually makes me feel hurt by it or whatever. That in itself is just an important movie to watch. And not only that, it's so fucking entertaining. Like, you're at the edge of your seat throughout the whole movie.
It's a 2.5 hour movie.
Yeah, it's a two and a half hour movies. And those aren't short cuts like Memento was. They're long cut, and one of them apparently you can see Ben Affleck's penis in.
Whoa.
Which I think is just an optical illusion.
No, it's full on. It's real.
Also, I mean, just to comment on Ben Affleck, I remember at the time people talking about he had just gotten Batman, and he just looks so big in this movie, like he's getting jacked up for Batman. I don't know.
He does, but he also looks so weak. It's very interesting, right? He looks pathetic.
He does, yeah. He doesn't look he doesn't look like muscle, like bodybuilder ripped. He looks just kind of like big, just thick.
I think he plays a really good sad sack.
yeah, he's a sad sack in The Way Back too. Actually, he's an alcoholic.
5 o'clock shadow, stubble, moping around. I think he's really good at that. In this movie, I don't know how you guys feel, but I was like fully on his side the whole time.
Well, because you're a misogynist.
I mean, yeah, he cheated on his wife, which is bad.
Yeah,
but she was
Let's not frame you for murder bad.
I mean, just divorce the guy. You have a prenup.
That's true.
That is the argument you can always come back to. But it just felt more psychological.
It's a cat and mouse thing. You know, after that first act, it becomes that cat and mouse game.
And again, that's another theme that we see in these movies. I mean, there was a cat and mouse happening in I Saw the Devil as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah, for sure.
And even to Memento in a way. Between the killer and but Teddy and Lenny.
They're constantly...
the cat and mouse in Memento is all in Leonard's head.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah,
he's chasing the memories.
That's a good point. There's another thing we see in common, but the difference in this one is that at the end of the movie, Amy still is convinced she's right. Amy doesn't think she's a bad person. She still thinks she's right.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's okay with that.
No,
he's like,
he's trapped.
He sacrifices because of the child that they're going to have.
I feel like that last act turns it into a horror film because Ben Affleck is just screwed. Like
he's stuck.
He's totally stuck.
I honestly, this is the first time I saw the movie.
Oh
wow!
I really liked it. I hated the ending.
Why?
Oh.
Because the villain wins.
That's just life, kid.
No, I know, but you don't get that cathartic relief at the end.
It's weird because she never really pays for her crime.
Like, I leave it with like, who is right and wrong in this situation? Because I definitely feel for Ben Affleck's character, especially in the first half. But when you realize the life that she's had to live, you can't help but feel sympathetic. And I know, we were discussing about bad guys having a good idea or being sympathetic in a way.
Yeah.
And this would have been my pick if that were the case as well. But it is the perfect balance of like, I totally think both of them are horrible people, and it's almost like they're both just a good fit for each
They're actually a good fit. Yeah. Maybe, and that's kind of what she realizes when she sees him on TV.
I mean, Affleck, he even says himself, like, I was trying to be the guy you wanted me to be, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of a schlub. I mean, she's like a Batman villain. She's truly unhinged.
Here's the thing. So you're saying she's sympathetic, and it was because Sammer is.
Yeah.
And you're saying that something drove her to get to the point where she's this mad. But it wasn't her boyfriends, because we discover that she's been doing this to her boyfriends since college or high school.
Right. But I think it just might be misogyny in general.
Or was
the
it
way
her
she was
parents?
raised.
Is it her parents that caused her to do this? Because they don't really get that deep into the emotional toll her parents took on her. I mean, a little bit.
I think it's less the parents and more just overall misogyny and finding how to. It's almost like she struggled so much with how to be a girlfriend, and she didn't realize how to be a person. Once she realized like she's not really a person, she's just Ben Affleck's wife or whatever. She's like, I want my life back, and I want to take him down with me. So there's no question that she has gone crazy in a way, but I don't necessarily think it's like unreasonable. Although the action she does is kind of crazy.
And you know what? The deterioration of their marriage from like good couple to super unhappy marriage, it rang so true. Like it was the circumstances were so understandable at first. Right? Like
I can speak to that personally.
Chris.
I mean, so I'm divorced, and the thing is, their marriage, as shown in the movie, they have all these like small arguments, and it is kind of what married couples argue about.
Yeah.
Money, and you're playing video games, which I can admit to being that person.
Yeah.
Never cheated on my wife, but maybe that was the final straw for her. But at the same time, it's like, just divorce the guy. You got the prenup. You got all the money.
You can go back to New York.
You'll leave him with nothing.
He'll have nothing at all.
Right.
Sell the bar. Get the money back for the
He's
bar.
unemployed.
Chris, I know you said you were totally on Ben Affleck's side throughout the whole movie. And I think for the most part, it makes sense to be on his side. But it so carefully makes sure not to just make her out to be, a sociopath. And to give her character and to give her feelings and like make you feel for her in a way that is like, oh, I actually don't know who's right or wrong in this.
And they do a lot to make him unlikable. Like he even hooks up with that girl like after his wife goes missing.
Yeah.
And that's
and lies to his sister about
I mean, I don't think he's not a great guy.
Right.
But at the same time, in the third act especially, she just becomes almost
unhinged.
like a comic book villain. The lengths she will go to ruin him includes murdering one of her exes to make it look like she was kidnapped.
And even go as far as giving herself wounds to make it look like
sodomizing herself with a wine bottle.
Look like she's been raped.
When she was tying her hands up and putting like
she kept
wine
her hands
on her crotch to make it look like blood, I was like, oh my god, she is clearly insane.
Yeah, and she leaves her wrists tied like all day, so she has like the marks. The bruises of like her wrists.
You know how like when she's in the hotel and she's watching the news with that girl, and the girl's like, oh, that girl's like, she's just a rich snob that's not getting any attention.
Yeah.
And so Amy just goes to her Mountain Dew and just spits in it.
Yeah.
just that level of petty. Loogie. Like you're even just like the thought of you're not even saying it directly to me, and you don't know that I'm this person. That's the only part of the movie where I'm like, how do you not know this is the same person?
That's the same. Right. Oh yeah, because you got a different haircut and you wear big glasses.
And she like gained some weight, and
she
which
did the
I
Clark
found
Kent
out
thing.
was a mix of like her gaining weight and some prosthetic.
The other thing about this movie that struck me this time is that the whole thing is really about manipulating media. It's all about how media covers things, and about the spin they put on it. Really, the media decides who's guilty or innocent before a trial. Even that's it.
It's
right.
That's
and how the cops fall for that as well, even though they don't like the main detective. She tries not to in the beginning, but the more she finds out, she finds the stuff in his garage and She's like, this crazy media person is making a lot of sense now.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I love
it
the
is
interplay
interesting.
between her and the other officer.
who just can't stand
You
Ben
know.
Affleck.
That was great interplay there. There's even that like misogyny thing later on where she's in the briefing room with the FBI and they basically tell her to hush up.
Right.
Right.
Because she's the only one trying
know?
to poke holes in the story, which it does have a lot of holes, but no one seems to
Tons.
care.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, I guess it's hard to tell because we know the whole story.
Yeah.
It's hard to be like, oh, there are holes there. It's like because we know the answers already, but in their mind, it's like it doesn't matter. She looks helpless. It's like whatever she's saying,
Right. Like why?
And to be honest, like, how do you not like if you were in that situation and you're Amy, you're amazing Amy from this children's book, and you see her raped and blood all over her, you're like, everything she's saying has to be true. There's no way she's this sadistic.
Right, because the alternative is that she's devised this insanely elaborate plan, injured herself, and murdered people along the way. You wouldn't jump to that conclusion for sure.
Right.
It's interesting seeing it in the context of this year, in the current moment, compared to like when it came out 5 years ago. The whole media thing. I mean, there's a TV show on Netflix right now called Trial by Media, all about how media sort of manipulation can help set the tone of a trial and find someone innocent or guilty before the trial, and like the way people use that to their advantage. I don't know. I think people look at the press and media differently these days, and so that's stuck. I mean, now it's stuck out so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did read that Fincher. There was something because he wears a Mets hat when he's in the airport.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
says he calls them twin set. They say twin sets, and then he puts on a Mets hat.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Affleck's is a notorious Red Sox fan.
Yep.
Oh.
And I really think that was Fincher's way because it didn't matter, right?
I mean,
He's not from New York.
Oh, you're right.
No, Fincher wanted him to wear a Yankees hat. And
and he compromised
he
with the
refused.
Mets.
Oh.
The Mets was the compromise.
Because they couldn't put a Red Sox hat because that wouldn't track.
Because that wouldn't
wouldn't
make
make
any
sense.
sense.
Right, but New York.
I thought he
makes
wasn't
sense.
even from New York either.
Right, but at
so
least
why
he
would
lived in New York.
Yeah, fair enough.
Where did he lived in Missouri?
It's just that Affleck, the actor, hates the Yankees.
Yeah,
but he's okay enough with the Mets for that to make sense.
which I respect in some
couldn't
way.
they? So he's from outside St. Louis. Like the movie takes place in outside
Yeah,
St.
he
Louis.
could have been a Cardinals hat.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
Why not just put a Cardinals hat on him?
I think he might have problems with that too. But
yeah, because he's a Red Sox fan.
That is
He
it.
probably
Yeah.
hates the
Cardinals are in the NL Central. That has something to do with the Red Sox or the Yankees.
I mean, you're right. I think the Cardinals are like another behemoth in MLB.
True. I wish we can get Ben Affleck on to speak for himself on this. I want to know.
Future episode.
I want to know why he chose the compromise of the Mets hat instead of the Cardinals, which would have made more character sense.
Right.
He seems to love his hometown.
Yeah, true.
I mean, come on.
He was in New York at the time. Maybe he had it.
Maybe
it was there.
maybe
and
he bought a
grabbed
hat
it.
from the airport because he was
True.
worried about.
Deleted scene. Nick Dunn buys a hat at the airport.
So the only thing else I have to say about this movie is the score, and I think it's just it's chilling, and especially when the whole reveal happens, that music right then is pretty awesome, and it fits like when she's explaining everything, it fits perfectly. The way I hope they keep working together forever. 'Cause
Oh yeah,
that's the dream team. I mean, if you have Sorkin writing too, that's the ultimate, I guess.
yeah. But I think, I mean, honestly, again, like just to go back to the genre, it hits all the things we've been talking about from a revenge standpoint.
It's more personal. It's almost like the ultimate revenge because it's like this person robbed me of
Right.
my livelihood in a way.
But then the thriller, I wouldn't classify as any other way. I mean, I see all the elements that are there.
You know, there is that cat and mouse game Chris was talking about, but it's almost like hidden to the audience sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it's only revealed later until the two meet up. Because when the two meet up and they still put on a pretty face and like, it's almost like, geez, they can't even even after all this has happened, they still have to look good in front of the camera.
Yeah. The last 15 minutes was crazy because there's just no way out for Ben Affleck's character. It's crazy he didn't just walk away. He didn't just leave. But then once she's pregnant, that's like the end of it.
Also, it's like a conversation about like domestic abuse and how it's not always just getting beat up by the other person.
Yeah.
it's literally, it can be psychological. So, and to both of them, like I think he's psychologically damaged by her, and the same as goes for him.
He can't even sleep in the same room as her. He's terrified that she's going to kill him because obviously she potentially could do it. She doesn't, that's not off the table for her. So he has to live with this person who at any moment can just be like, I'm going to murder you now and get away with it somehow. So that's Gone Girl. Any final thoughts on Gone Girl?
Should we just jump into
honorable mention? So yeah, for those keeping score, for those who have still stuck it out to the end of this podcast,
God bless you.
I think what we'd like to do at the end of the episode is just give a little honorable mention to all those movies that fit the bill, but we just didn't pick them for whatever reason. Right. This was, honestly, I didn't have other movies jump out to me. I mean, there's tons of revenge movies, but...
Yeah, the only one that really jumped out to me was Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Ooh.
I almost wish I picked it, but I just think Gone Girl is a more important movie for people to watch. Killing of Sacred Deer is a great joyride. It's kind of absurd, and it's almost like comedic. Man, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
There's the obvious one is Joker.
Oh, right.
Because he is getting revenge on society. Like it's definitely a personal thing. I mean, I think John Wick 3 is more of a...
I was going to say John Wick, but those are pretty action heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this list, and some of them I don't quite think is like Leon the Professional. I don't think so.
Right. There's a revenge element to it because Matilda is trying to get revenge for her family being murdered. Well, specifically her brother, because she hates her parents.
Yeah, but I feel like it's more actiony than thriller.
Yeah. I wrote down a few. I mean, obviously, I already talked about Old Boy. I think Drive qualifies as a revenge thriller.
The one with Ryan Gosling?
Yeah.
I know early on they wanted to market movies and they just said words like action. Like that in itself, like, oh, that sparks some type of feeling. But I just, the word is almost meaningless to me because every movie has action. Yeah. It's pretty damn broad and non-specific. Right.
Another one I really like that I don't think a lot of people know of. It's called The Salton Sea. It stars Val Kilmer. Basically, an accident happens. I believe his wife dies, and he gets involved with a bunch of like junkies trying to avenge her death. It's a really good movie. History of Violence, the Cronenberg movie, and then Hard Candy is kind of...
Oh yeah, Hard Candy.
An intense revenge movie.
I haven't seen it yet, but Nicole Kidman is in this movie called Destroyer. That apparently qualifies. I love Nicole Kidman, so I'm surprised I haven't seen that yet. And then I think this is more action. They're saying it's a thriller, but Assassination Nation. If you liked Euphoria, which is the same director, you'll love Assassination Nation. I do think Euphoria, the characters are more they're
realistic?
more thought out. Yeah, they're more thought out. They seem a little bit on the shallow end on an Assassination Nation. But the message is interesting, and it's just a fun movie too.
Well, I think that about does it for this episode. For our very first episode.
That was fun. I do wanna watch Old Boy now, and I wanna check out some movies.
Yeah, do it and let me know.
And we hope that all of you out there have enjoyed this episode as well. And of course, you could always find us on social media. Sammer, where can they find us?
We have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, Instagram page, and YouTube, all under A Few Good Movies Pod. And feel free to email us at afewgoodmoviespod@gmail.com. And if you have any recommendations of other movies we missed or of other topics you want us to do, feel free to tell us.
Yeah, reach out. We always want to hear about good topic ideas. All right, great. Well, we will see you next time on A Few Good Movies.